Hi, and welcome back to our second to last day of the Easter Weltall-Forscher-Ferien. Today's day is going to be all in English. This is our science and science fiction day. My name is Anna Green. I'm going to be moderating the program and working with you all today. But I can't do this all alone. So with me, I have my coworker and colleague, Martin Wustaf.
Hello, everyone.
Martin is going to be doing our program for us tomorrow as well. And Martin, would you like to tell us just a little bit about that so we know what to look forward to tomorrow?
Yeah, of course. Today it's about science fiction, but tomorrow it's quite similar, but it's about time and time travel. It's about what time is and what properties time has. And it's, of course, about how we could, maybe in the future, could travel in time forward or maybe backwards. Big questions. I hope I can answer some of them. Not all, very, very complicated. But yeah, that's a topic.
That sounds really interesting. I might have to tune in tomorrow to see how that goes.
Yeah, please, 10 o'clock.
That sounds good. But today, like I mentioned, this is science and science fiction. For now, I'm going to say goodbye to Martin. He'll be back in a little bit.
Yeah, see you.
And we're going to start with our first topic of science fiction, and that's communication in space. So whenever we watch a sci-fi show, there's pretty much immediate communication between people. And it doesn't matter if they're both on Earth, it doesn't matter if one is on Earth, one's on the moon or Mars, or in a completely different galaxy. It's always that the video image pops up on the screen, you hear the audio message right away, there's absolutely no delay. And while that would be very nice to have, that's just not quite possible. Even on the Earth, when you're far enough away, there's a small delay. We just don't detect it because, realistically speaking, on Earth, we're very close to each other, even half a world away. But when we start moving out into our solar system, we can see that there are much larger spaces to go between the planets. So the image that you're seeing right now is to scale. So the distances between the planets and the sun and each other, as well as their size, that's all to scale. And as you can see, it may not be quite what you expected. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, our inner rocky worlds, those are much closer to the sun than you would think, and much closer to each other. But once you get out towards the gas planets, everything starts spreading out quite a bit. And then when we leave our solar system, so you can see our sun in the middle in our solar system, once you go past the Oort cloud, you're talking about getting really far away, just to get to our nearest neighboring star, which is Proxima Centauri and then Alpha Centauri. And those are already about 4 light years away. And what's a light year? That's how far light can travel in 1 year. So that's quite a long time. So for us to be able to communicate with someone outside of our galaxy even, and rather outside of our solar system, that would take quite some time, at least with today's modern technology. Let's look a little bit further with that and check out Earth and Mars. There's been a lot of talk about going to Mars. The Artemis program wants to land the first woman on Mars and the first man, and also the first people to go back to the moon since the 70s. Now, to accomplish that task, we have to think about how far apart Earth and Mars are and how we can communicate between the two. So the distance between Earth and Mars is about 280 million kilometers currently. That changes slightly throughout the course of our year and a Martian year as the two orbit the sun independently. And that's a really big number to have to think about. Even for me, it's hard for me to fathom 280 million kilometers. That's really big. So let's take a smaller look, something that we can actually look at together and see in person. So looking at the Earth and Mars, first of all, we can see that Mars has about half the diameter of the Earth. So if we scale down our planet Earth to 1 millimeter, it'd be the size of this pin here. Now, Martin, I could actually use a little help. Would you mind coming and being Mars for me?
Yeah, of course. I think that's the Mars.
Yes, and so Mars is half the size of our Earth pin. So again, Earth here is 1 millimeter, and Mars is 0.5 millimeter. So how far apart would our scale Earth and Mars here have to be from each other to be accurate to the actual distance? How far apart do you think we would have to be? 0.5 meter? A meter? 10 meters? 22 meters. We have to be 22 meters apart from each other. And how big is that? Well, the room we are standing in now in the Großplanetarium, our actual planetarium dome area, is 23 meters in diameter. So we're going to go to just about opposite walls from each other and show you what that distance looks like. So, you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, here I am now. This, again, is my 1 millimeter Earth for our model here. And Martin is now where Mars should be with his 0.5 millimeter Mars model. We are now standing 22 meters apart from each other. So as you can see, in our scaled down version of the distance between Earth and Mars, we're really far apart. And if we think about that in the numbers we've already talked about, the distance between Earth and Mars is huge. Now, one of the things that I'm most excited about is that Martin said he was going to call me from Mars. So I'm going to pull out my phone now and let's just wait a little bit and see if we can talk to Martin on Mars.
Hello, Anna. Here's Martin. Greetings from Mars.
Well, I still haven't gotten anything from Martin yet. We may have to wait a while. So why don't we go ahead and go back and see if we can figure out just how long it's going to take to get our message from Martin on Mars. All right, we're still nothing from Martin yet. So why don't we just continue on and see how long it might actually take for us to be able to get our message from Martin on Mars. So again, we can see the distance between Earth and Mars, again, about 280 million kilometers. And to figure out how long it's going to take Martin's message to get to us, we need to know the speed of light. And the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. Not per minute, not per hour, like we think of with cars, per second. So that's really fast. And if we use that to figure out how long it's going to take, we have to divide the distance by the speed of light. And we already worked out the math here, and that comes out to about 930 seconds, or just under 16 minutes. So I guess we're going to be waiting for a while for us to get Martin's phone call. So hopefully that will come in soon for us. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and start talking about another topic that comes up a lot in sci-fi, and that's gravity, and more so artificial gravity. Oftentimes, particularly in older sci-fi, but even in more modern sci-fi, like certain shows about going to Mars and Matt Damon getting left behind, we see space stations that have a circular or even hexagonal pattern to the center to them, and usually those are rotating. And this is how they get their artificial gravity, so that they can walk like normal in space, because as we know, it looks like everybody's floating due to the microgravity. Now, there's also different shows about trekking through space and wars within stars that really, it looks like they're pushing a button, or there's just no explanation at all for how they have artificial gravity. They just do. So how realistic is that? Is that even possible? And how could we achieve that? And those are all interesting topics and things that even NASA and ESA are looking at today to see how to better help our astronauts. So first of all, to figure out how to make artificial gravity, we need to understand gravity. So gravity is a force that basically is like pushing us down to Earth. And we don't really feel it. Our muscles notice it though, because they help us stand up, they help us fight gravity every single day. And that's why the astronauts can have problems, because being in microgravity, having no artificial gravity at this time to help them on the International Space Station, the longer they're in gravity, the less they need those same muscles, and they begin to lose the muscles. So they have to work out at least 2 hours a day so that when they come back to the Earth, they can still stand up. So gravity is the reason that we build those muscles and are able to stand. Now, everything has gravity, or everything that has mass at least has gravity. So, for example, I have gravity because I have mass. A grain of sand has gravity because it has mass, but I'm more massive, I'm way more than a grain of sand. And that being said, the Earth is much more massive than I am, so it has much more gravity than I do. So how can we mimic that much mass? How could we create that much mass that would be able to get the gravity like here on Earth? And the answer to that is centripetal force. So what's that? Well, you've probably experienced it in your own lives. If you've ever been on a roller coaster, and when you go around that sharp bend or you go through a loop, and that feeling that you're getting of being pushed, they call that pulling G's sometimes, but that's that feeling that you get during those points, that's centripetal force. You may have also felt it if maybe you were in the car one time with mom and dad or an older sibling who was driving, and they took a turn a little too fast, and you feel that push or that pull. That's also centripetal force. Now, one of the really fun ways to demonstrate this is the next video that I'm going to show you. This was at an Oktoberfest in Munich a few years ago. This is called the Wall of Death. And here we see a few motorcycle riders, and they look like they're riding pretty normally right now. But as they build up speed and they use their mass, they're able to actually bring in that centripetal force, and look at that. They're not falling down. They're able to stay up on that wall and get really high up and sideways on that wall too. So this is the principle that we are looking at when we talk about how we could create artificial gravity in space. Another example that you could try at home is the next time your teddy bear or stuffed animal needs to get washed, watch it while it's in the washer, because the spin cycle goes 400 times faster than Earth's acceleration. So you can get an idea of what happens with the laundry, with your teddy bear, whatever it may be that's in the washing machine. You can see that at work there too, much like our video here. Now, there's another experiment that you can do at home, and we've prepared a video of this. My team was kind enough to brave the cold a few days ago and go outside to prepare this so you could see the experiment. But with your parents' permission, you could do this at home as well. You just need a bucket and some water. Might also be advised to wait till a little bit warmer weather. It would probably be more fun to do this when you could be outside in the sunshine. And you'll see why when we get to the end. So we see that Martin has found the correct speed to rotate his arm to keep all of that water in the bucket using centripetal force. But if he moves too slowly, he's going to have all that water come out on his head and shoulders. So that is the idea behind artificial gravity. And I mentioned earlier that the different space organizations are looking at this because we do want to be able to have longer duration space missions. And what's cool about this idea is this is something that you actually could be able to do in the future. You are the perfect age to become an astronaut for living and working in space and going to Mars. So if we take a look at NASA's idea of how this would look, this is a model of a space station that they're looking at building. It uses the centripetal force to create artificial gravity, and it's that round shape we saw earlier, constantly having a rotation to it. Now, this is something that we would, of course, like to see, like to test, be able to use. However, something like this is going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to need to be an international effort as well. It can't just be one country building it. It's going to need a lot of people and a lot of brains to work on it. So maybe something for the future, but right now, we still got the ISS at least. So we've talked now about communication, artificial gravity. Let's talk a little bit about something that everybody seems to enjoy in sci-fi films and movies, and that is sound in space. More specifically, explosions in space. That's probably seemingly familiar to you, or maybe something like this. Or perhaps something that sounds like this. That one's my favorite. It's definitely the most dramatic one, and it fits so well with this space explosion that's going on, and it makes these movies so much fun, whether it be two ships fighting against each other in space or a supernova, whatever it may be. It always just seems so dramatic and cool, and unfortunately, it's not realistic. Maybe I should have said spoiler alerts at the beginning of this episode of Welt Forscher-Ferien, because I'm sorry to say that's not realistic at all. Now, why is that not realistic? Because space is a perfect vacuum, and sound needs a medium to travel through for us to be able to hear it. That doesn't exist. There's no air in space. There's no way for us to be able to hear that. So we did an experiment to help you see this kind of in action. And how can we get a perfect vacuum here on Earth, or a vacuum at all? Well, we can use this device here. This is a vacuum chamber. And you can see it's a bell here. We have a gauge so that we can see what the pressure is inside, how much air we've been able to pump out of it. And we can put things inside and test and see what happens to them in a vacuum-like space. And so that's what we did with sound.
Eins, zwei, drei.
So as you could probably notice, the sound at the end, after we had used the vacuum chamber was much more muffled and harder to hear and quieter than it had been when Martin was speaking himself at the beginning or even after the recorder was inside before the vacuum was created. Now, in a perfect vacuum, you wouldn't have been able to hear anything at all. Our vacuum is not perfect. It does a great job for what we need it to do, though. And this is still a good example of what we can see would happen in space. Now, because we couldn't get all the air out, that was the medium that the sound could travel to us through, plus through the base of the chamber and the table and so on and so forth. There are much bigger, more advanced vacuum chambers that can create that perfect vacuum, typically used by organizations like NASA to investigate how they can make spaceflight better for humans as well as vehicles that go into space too. So let's take a look now at what an explosion in space should really look and sound like. So, what'd you think? It's not very dramatic, is it? So that's why typically in movies and shows you get that added sound put in, because it's a much more dramatic effect to be able to experience through multiple senses instead of just the visual. So moving on, now that we've talked about sound in space, let's talk about something that is more along the visual lines. So, oh, wait a minute. Oh, look, it's Martin. He's finally calling from Mars. It must have been a little over 15 minutes. Hi, Martin. Martin, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear, wait, no. No. Oh. Okay. Martin, I'm going to send this message back to you. Could you repeat what you said, please? Okay. Talk to you in half an hour. Bye. So that was a bummer because I couldn't hear what Martin said. It was a little garbled. And unlike here on Earth, when you can't hear maybe what your mom says when you're talking to her on the phone, you can't just say, what? Can you repeat yourself? Takes a while to hear back from the other person. Now, why did I say I'll hear you in 30 minutes? Well, because first it's going to take me 15 minutes to send my message to Martin and to reach him. And then he has to send his message all the way back to me again. So it's going to be quite a while before I get to hear Martin's message and hopefully get the entirety of it this time. So, like I said, we're going to move on now to something more visual, and it's something that probably some of you have been hoping for. It's definitely a very popular thing, and that is laser swords. Yes, also known as light swords, energy sabers, lightsabers, of course. Whatever you may call them, it's a sword made with lasers. And you know, you hear it make these sounds, you hear the clash. It's used as a shield if somebody shoots at them with a blaster and they're able to knock that away and not get hit. It's really a versatile instrument. But how realistic is a lightsaber or a light sword? And to look further into this, I have some instruments to help us, but I can't do this alone, so if I could get Martin to come back and help me.
Here I am, back from Mars.
Thank you. If you could grab that laser pointer there.
Yeah.
So we have in our hands now 2 laser pointers, and they're typical red laser pointers. Martin, can you hold out your hand for a second, actually? I'm going to shine this on your hand, nowhere near your face. And there we go. So we can see the red arrow on Martin's hand coming from my laser pointer, and it doesn't look like I'm blasting a hole through you. How you feel?
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Everything is okay. My hand is still here.
Okay, good, great. So our laser pointers aren't high-powered enough to do any damage like that. But as you can see, I pointed it. You could see it on Martin's hand. If we were to point it on the floor again, we'd see it there. But I didn't see a beam between your hand and my laser point. Did you see? No?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe we can hear it if we both turn on our laser pointers at the same time and we cross the beams. Let's try that.
Yeah, okay. No.
I don't hear anything.
No. Me too.
No.
Psh. No, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Well, that's disappointing. And like we said, we didn't see the beam. We didn't see the specific length that all of these light swords seem to be. The only time I saw anything was when it was on your hand.
Yeah,
so
right.
that would mean to be able to see that, we'd need a mirror or something to reflect the light back to us. So that's a shame. Well, and I mentioned that they're used for blasters to deflect the blows, but I don't think I could move fast enough to do that. Could you?
Faster than light.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I can't run faster than light. That's for sure. I can't move that fast. So that's probably not, well, that's definitely not accurate either. So what can lasers do? Well, there are some pretty high-powered lasers out there, aren't there?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
science.
Yeah. We use them for astronomy.
Yeah.
There are some that can be used to show things not just in the planetarium sky, but out in the real sky too. Those you have to be extra careful with. And a big disclaimer: never, ever, ever point laser pointers at somebody's face if you have one. You could hurt the person. And the ones that you can use in the sky, you have to be very careful when you use those. Never, ever point them at something flying in the sky, especially airplanes. That's a big no-no. But those can be used for teaching astronomy outside. Now, they can also be used further by bigger organizations who have bigger lasers. So this is an image of a laser at Goddard Space Flight Center, and it is being used to do experiments with the moon. So this laser is so strong that its light reaches all the way to the moon. And these special reflectors that the Apollo astronauts left there in the 60s and 70s, and we're still using them for science today. That's how powerful that laser is, and that's how cool the thought process was behind the science experiments of Apollo. So what have we learned? Well, one of the things that we've learned, thanks to the lasers and the reflectors, is that the moon is actually moving away from the Earth. And it's moving at a rate of about how much your fingernail grows each year.
Wow, that's not much.
It doesn't seem like much, but if it does it for a really long time, it'll be interesting to see what finally happens when it gets far enough away that Earth's gravity doesn't necessarily affect it so much. I'm curious to see what happens, but I'm not sure that I'll get to see that within my lifetime. But future generations, hopefully, will get to experience what that could be like.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, it seems like light swords, laser swords, just aren't really realistic. They're a really cool idea for science fiction. We love them. They're super fun, but they're just not something that actually can be used, at least not without some kind of power or magic. And that being said, I know I am a huge sci-fi nerd. Martin, I think you are too.
Of course, yes.
Yes. So we prepared something, and just because we don't want to leave it with this doesn't work, that doesn't work. There's always creativity in sci-fi. There's always something fun, and there's always something to strive for the future. So we've prepared a little something. And before we do that, just wanted to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Science and Science Fiction Weltall-Forscher-Ferien Day. And make sure that you tune in tomorrow to learn all about time travel with Martin.
I will see you, I hope.
Yes, and that one will be in German, but doesn't matter what your German or even today your English skills are like. Lots of cool stuff to see and hear. So definitely check that out at 10 a.m. Now, to really present to you, we're going to need some dramatic music and a costume change. So thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.